Welcome to The Other Side, Mississippi Today's political podcast. I'm Jeff Pender, politics and government editor at Mississippi Today, joined here today, as most often, with my colleague, Taylor Vance. Taylor,
Hey,
how are you doing?
I'm good, Jeff.
Great. We have another colleague here, Alan Siegler, health reporter at Mississippi Today. Alan, thanks for coming on.
Great to be here.
And we've got two special guests today, one of whom has been on this podcast fairly frequently, I think. We have State House Public Health Chairman Sam Creekmore from New Albany. Chairman Creekmore, thanks for coming on again.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Sure. And then we also have a really special guest, and it'll take some explaining for probably our main topic. But we have Ben Bush from Brandon, and he is a former U.S. Army Ranger, and he is now with Lost Hat Company, which we were talking earlier. That could be a full episode on what he does there with outdoor hats and apparel. But Mr. Bush, thank you for coming on today.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for having me.
And thank you for your service and Rangers leading the way.
Yes, sir.
Our topic today, I'm out of this whole crew, I probably know the least about this. I'm here to strike a blow for C students as usual. I'm going to turn it over to Alan to explain kind of our main topic today.
Yeah. So I believe May, I went to Representative Creekmore's office and we started talking about what he had planned to do to address the overdose crisis. And Representative Creekmore talked a little bit about this drug ibogaine that he had been interested, he had heard a little bit about, he had researched. He said it had helped some Mississippians. There was a public health hearing in August about this where Ben Bush spoke about kind of his harrowing experiences both in the military and some of the experiences he had afterwards after receiving some ibogaine treatment in Mexico. So before I go any further, I think that the best explanation for why Representative Creekmore is so invested in this, I think Ben would be a great person to start on that. Ben, do you mind sharing a little bit about your experience, maybe start with where you were coming out of the military and what led you to go down to Mexico to receive some ibogaine treatment?
My last deployment was in 2016, the end of 2016, and my ETS date was coming up in November of that year. I was married. My wife and I had our first little boy, and we had a long distance marriage. She was here in Brandon, and I was still in Georgia at Fort Benning. So we were married for about a year, and he was going to be born, that November. So I was planning on getting out. Well, that last deployment in 2016 was kind of when ISIS was kind of on the rise and everything was kind of pick up, and I was starting to doubt whether I wanted to get out. And we had a very, very busy deployment. I want to say fun, a lot of action. So I ended up getting tearing some ligaments in my ankle that last mission of that last deployment. So I come home and I dealt with the military doctors on needing surgery, and they had scheduled. I told them I needed an MRI, not an X-ray, but obviously you got to go through the X-ray process first. Well, they had scheduled some stuff for me to get done in, December. And I'm like, well, my ETS date's November. I'm getting out. So anyway, I backdoored them and came home on leave. I was home on leave, post-deployment leave and paternity leave at the same time. So instead of me being home a week, I was home for 2 weeks, and I went backdoored them and ended up getting surgery on my ankle at Mississippi Sports Medicine, which is the greatest place in the world. And I show back up in a boot and a scooter, and they're like, well, we can't let you get out. You've got to, we can't release you till you're 100%. So I did about 6 months of rehab. I did 4 or 5 hours a day of rehab with our strength and conditioning coach on bed, in our Ranger facility. And I was back to 100% in 3 or 4 months. So I ended up getting out of the military in February of 2017. So, my wife's at home with a newborn. I'm in Fort Benning doing rehab. I'm going home every weekend to see her, help her out, and it was very, very stressful. And as soon as I got out and came home, I was like, well, I've had so much going on. I don't know what to do. I don't have a job. I had no plan. I regretted getting out of the military. I wanted to get back in. I was going through the VA process, the VA disability process, all that stuff. And depression just crushed me. I'm the last person that ever thought that I would run into any type of mental health issues. And Rangers being Rangers, it's like, suck it up, get it, figure it out, suck it up. No, nothing's wrong with me. Marriage was on the rocks. Financially, we were struggling. Everything's just crushing me. And I'm like, I learned real quick that being a good husband and being a good dad is harder than anything I've ever done in Ranger Battalion or combat. It truly is. So I was working, I was getting job opportunities, but it was low incomes, not anything long term. I'm working for friends that own business. So I probably had 4 or 5 jobs in a 2-year span and battling everything, myself. Well, I finally go to my primary care provider in town, and within 5 minutes of talking to him, he prescribed me, 2 antidepressants, and I felt like it made things worse. I'm very anti-medication type person, and I was on I didn't want to be on this earth anymore. I hit it. Nobody knew. And my wife finally was like, okay, I got a job opportunity to go contract in Iraq. And it was a dream job, but lo and behold, I'm not thinking about my family at the time. I'm thinking about myself. I'm thinking about money. So I go and I get a job contracting in Iraq. So I did that. I had a 5-year plan. I was going to work my way up there and, just pay off our house, all that kind of stuff. So it was a 5-year plan. Well, it turned into a 2-year plan. I'm overseas 8 months out of the year. I'd made 3 or 4 trips a year over there, and my wife's working full time. We ended up having our second child, our second little boy. And she's like, I'll have divorce papers on the kitchen counter when you get home if you don't find a new job and come home. I don't care what you do, where you work. I just need you home. So the only thing I was good at and knew what to do was, run and gun, do military type stuff. So I come home, I apply for 100 jobs. Every single person was like, we're not going to hire you. You don't have any experience. So yeah, at the time I was a little arrogant, college degree, combat experience, special operations guy. Like, I should be able to get a job. I just could not catch a break. So I'm putting everything on my own shoulders. Can't handle it. Well, I have a really good friend of mine that was in Ranger Bat before me who has been studying ibogaine, DMT. He's been he's been in South America, West Africa hundreds of times. He's like, you need to go down to Mexico. I'll get it all set up for you. Fill these forms out, blah, blah, blah. And at this time, I'm home before I have one more trip to Iraq, and I was going to let them know that I was done.
And Ben, so sorry to interrupt you, but just kind of for clarification for the audience, ibogaine is a psychedelic drug naturally found in, I believe, in sub-Saharan Africa. And the reason why Ben was talking about going to Mexico to receive this is because it's a Schedule I drug in the United States. It is not, the federal government does not see it suited for clinical treatment. It has been shown to have potential to address a variety of mental disorders, but the U.S. has not studied it very much.
And in between those trips, I had a close Ranger buddy that was killed in combat on the next deployment too. So the survivor's guilt kind of set in. He came over he transitioned over to our sniper platoon and took my spot whenever I got out. So that was rough. And once I got my ankle back to 100%, I'm doing everything. I'm back in shape and plenty of time to rest and heal up and all that stuff while I'm contracting. And that's really the only thing I want to do. And you've got, relatives, friends telling you, you need to do this. You need to apply for this job. You would be good at this. And I don't know what to do. I'm lost. I'm starting over again. I've started over 10 times in my life. So I get with this company, this program in Mexico, and they were awesome. It was very professionally ran. They kind of gave me study material, educate myself on ibogaine.
This is Ambia Life Sciences, the company?
This was the Mission Within.
Okay.
Is who I went with, which I did not know the name. VETS is what I refer to this program as. I didn't even know it was called Mission Within through VETS until this year.
Mr. Bush, what did your friend tell you about this drug, or why was he recommending it to you?
He went down there and did it in 2018, and it was before anybody really knew about it. It was bigger in like the SEAL community, and he's very well connected, networks every day. So he knew, and he had learned about it when he was in Africa. He learned about it when he was in South America, and I didn't really open up to him specifically on what was going on, but he knew I was depressed and stressed, and anxiety was kicking in, and marriage was on the rocks, and the timing could not have been perfect. So I kind of dropped. It kind of explained to my wife what I was doing. I couldn't tell her much because I didn't really know except for what I researched, and I was kind of scared to go.
Were you skeptical at all, or were you, open to trying it, or just, I guess, what were some of your thoughts about that?
So I was very skeptical, very, very way out of my comfort zone. But at the time I was like, I'll do anything
right
to feel better. If they say it works, I had nothing to lose at that point. So they set it all up, and I had a coach basically that I did Zoom calls with. They kind of taught me how to clear my mind and all that stuff. But lo and behold, this ice storm comes through Jackson that same weekend of February that I'm going. And my wife's kind of like, hey, you don't need to go to Mexico this weekend. What if we lose power? We got 2 kids at home. So then I'm not even stressed out. So I'm telling them, I'm like, hey, my mind's not right to come down there and do it. And they're like, you'll be okay. You'll figure it out. And what saved me is the Jackson airport shut down for 2 or 3 days from the ice. So,
I'm going to be honest. I don't run into too many people who say that the Jackson airport has saved them. So that's a good thing to hear.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But, so it got pushed. It got pushed a week.
So what was the experience when you got to Mexico like?
So I fly into San Diego, and I'm supposed to link up with the doctor, the program manager, the therapist, which was the program manager's wife, and 3 other former SEAL team guys that were going to be in the program too. So. And I link up with them at a restaurant, and they were like, hey, we're going to fast. So this is your last meal for the weekend. So I probably ate about, 10,000 calories while I was at this restaurant. I don't like people telling me that I'm not going to eat for a couple days. So we load up in the vehicles and we drive down to Tijuana, Mexico. And they have a house on the beach that they rent and have set up. So we went in there. It was set up very, very professionally. We kind of put everything away. We had just a bag. We put our phones up. We didn't have our phones all weekend. And we walked around and kind of chatted with everybody. And, I realized that some of these guys are way, way, more off than I am and have been struggling for longer than I have. And I'm in any type of stressful environment, I'm the same person cracking jokes, and I'm like, okay, I need to stop talking. I'm asking them questions if they hunt and fish. And, these guys are West Coast guys that that surf and have never been hunting and fishing before. So I'm like, I don't really mesh with these guys. I'll just focus on the program. And they had a room set up like a hospital room, hospital bed. We did blood work. They had their kitchen and living room area, very, very peaceful kind of setup. The other room had 4 mattresses on the floor. You had your bowl. Did not know that it was a puke bowl, a throw up bowl, bottle of water, towel, and had another mattress on the floor where 2 nurses, full-time nurses, would hang out and monitor everything. So we're hooked up to heart monitors, and we have our little powwow, our little meeting where we kind of went over our biggest fears. And they're lighting incense, they're doing everything, kind of clear bad energy. It was odd, but I bought into the system.
Once you received the treatment, how did you feel?
So it was in a capsule form, synthetic form. We took it and we went straight up to our mattresses, our beds, and laid down. We put our sleep mask on, and they told us that you'll know it's about to start when you hear something similar to a zipper or a 2-stroke motor dirt bike. You'll hear it and it'll go across your vision. So I'm laying there in the bed, and to my left, I'm on the far right. To my left, there's three other beds with the patients, and we're laying there, and I hear that sound. And I don't know if y'all remember from Jurassic Park, the cartoon DNA video they had on there. I started seeing similar cartoons like that. Very weird. And I'm laying there, and I start having 4 different visions over and over and over. And 2 were from my childhood, and it was my brother and I playing in the backyard, riding the 4-wheeler. I could see his bleach blonde hair like blowing in the wind. I saw a dead body on some pavement that a guy had jumped from a building and committed suicide. And I saw an alligator's hide, an alligator back, and coming in and out of the water, muddy water. So I didn't know why. Everybody has a different experience. Well, I kept having those visions over and over, and I start thinking about other things. I'm trying to control the medicine. I had plantar fasciitis in both feet at the time, and I could barely get out of bed, could barely walk. So I'm trying to talk to the medicine to heal my feet. Something clicked at one time, and somebody said, "Don't be surprised if you don't see anything or hear any." I should have shared this at the hearing, but I forgot about it. Don't be surprised if you don't see any type of combat-related issues while you're doing your treatment, because you've already processed all that stuff. It'll all be different. So we've already processed any type of combat trauma, anything like that. So I keep trying to control the medicine, and I was like, I think I'm going to throw up. And I'm trying to meditate and try to control not throwing up. I hate throwing up, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So I rolled over, and I remember I had a big old bowl next to my bed, and I reached down and I could not feel it. So I'm like, well, sorry to the guy next to me. I'm about to throw up all over him. So I just started throwing up, and I knew I was still there because I was thinking the same way I always think. And I'm like, I'm going to reach down and see if I threw up all over the floor, and there's nothing there. Well, I flipped my sleep mask up, and the bowl was right in my face. The nurse was holding it for me the entire time. I had no idea she was there. I guess she just kind of knew or could tell, and she was holding it for me the whole time. This went on for probably 8 to 10 straight hours.
Oh. After that period, and when you returned back to Mississippi, did you feel like your depression, you mentioned you had severe anxiety at the hearing. Did you feel like those symptoms were
completely? When I left, I mean, it beat the living crap out of me.
Yeah.
I submitted, and when I left, I felt like I weighed 100 pounds. I had no desire to drink alcohol. I had dipped tobacco for 8 years and did not want to be around it, didn't want to smell it, didn't touch it. Sugar cravings were gone. I got back into nutrition, and I'll drink alcohol, 1 weekend a month. I have no desire to do anything like that. I felt like I weighed 100 pounds. I was cleansed and happy as can be. I was kind of in a daze for 2 or 3 days. I didn't talk much. I didn't listen to the radio, driving down the road, clear headed. And it's extremely hard to explain, but yeah, it just kind of, they told me to try to develop new habits, routine stuff. And I was a routine guy before, but every time my routine got messed up or plans changed, or, I got to pick up both boys from school today, and my wife's like, hey, I can't leave work, or I got to pick up one boy from school today. My wife's like, I can't get away from work. You got to pick up both. I would get angry. My entire plan had got screwed up. So, and I realized that I would adapt to everything and wouldn't get angry. And, people needing something right away, and I physically cannot get to it. I would be like, hey, I cannot get it today, but I'll get it done for you tonight or first thing in the morning. So didn't even stress over that anymore. So everything kind of shifted more in a positive way.
Well, I guess from there, Chairman Creekmore, give us a brief explanation of how you got interested in this and what potential you think it has.
Well, as y'all know, I've kind of been in the mental health and addiction space since I've been in the legislature, not necessarily by choice, and we've made great strides. And I think the Lord put ibogaine on my table for Mississippi to explore. And it's led me to people like Ben, and I've spent many hours with Ben, and his story is incredible. And he won't tell y'all, but I mean, he is a hero. I mean, the things he's done and accomplished in the military and the things he's seen and been through are incredible and traumatic. And then he comes home, and, the treatment he has and the solutions that we provide are not enough to make him whole. And ibogaine is a way that resets the brain, not just for PTSD or TBI, but also for drug addiction. And Ben's not that issue, but it's a way to reset. And with one treatment, 80% of the people lose their withdrawals, period. A second treatment is as high as 97%. And we have nothing on the market in America today that is even close to those percentages.
Chairman Creekmore, where are you getting those statistics from?
From Dr. Nolan Williams, who studied veterans that have gone down, just like Ben did, to Mexico to be treated for ibogaine.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Williams has studied this therapy with regards to traumatic brain injuries, not with substance use disorder, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so he's not studying withdrawals then?
No, he is not. There are several people that go down, but yes, I've gotten interested in this with the VETS program, Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions, the same organization that helped Ben get his treatment. But it does have profound effects with addiction. And that is why we need to bring it to Mississippi to study. And my goal is to establish FDA trials here in Mississippi.
So Chairman Creekmore, you have been writing, you first mentioned the ibogaine to me in May. You've been writing op-eds about this throughout the summer. You hold this public hearing in August where you tell me that you would like to see $5 million of Mississippi's opioid settlement money committed to fund clinical trials. Texas and Arizona both allocated some money, public money, non-opioid settlement money, but other public money to help fund these clinical trials. One of the things that experts have told me, well, there's great, case examples like Mr. Bush, who say that this ibogaine has really helped them address their mental disorders. As a whole, the body of evidence isn't very strong right now that ibogaine has the potential to at least, if we're talking opioid settlement money, then we're going to look more at substance use disorder. With regards to substance use disorder, I'm looking at a study, a systematic review right now from Yale and from Cleveland Clinic, and it says that the findings right now with ibogaine and other psychedelics is limited by many studies of weak design focused on opioid withdrawal and few double-blind or placebo-controlled trials. So it's saying that there isn't a lot of it's not excluding that, ibogaine has the potential to really help people, but there's not a strong body of evidence yet. So I guess if Mississippi is to commit public money for something that doesn't have a strong body of evidence yet, what risk does that put for Mississippians? And, we talk about the opioid settlement money. That is money that is paid on the lives of Mississippians who have died.
Absolutely. And I take that very seriously. And we're looking at $400 million over the next, 15 years that's going to come into the state. And I'm asking for $5 million for a treatment that has, you're correct, there's not a lot of evidence in the United States where it's been successful, but there's plenty of evidence out of this country where it's made profound differences in people's lives, not just for veterans, but for addiction issues too. So just a small portion of that to study this drug and not turn our back on this, to me, is worthwhile and worthy.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, if we could, I guess, back up just a little bit, what exactly would this clinical trial, I guess, look like, or your legislation look like? So, you're proposing $5 million, but could you explain, I guess, who would be receiving this $5 million, who would be conducting this trial, some of the things like that?
Absolutely. As Alan mentioned, there are two other states right now that have passed this. Texas is putting $50 million in it from their general funds, and Arizona's putting $5 million toward it. And the idea is to partner with Texas and now Arizona, and we would offer $5 million, and then a pharmaceutical company would be chosen, and they would also put in a matching fund. So a total of $10 million for Mississippi. The FDA trials there's an application process. We would use the same application that Texas used. So we share that expense, and we would partner with them, and it'd be a shared study, FDA trial between the three states right now.
Gotcha.
Chairman Creekmore, just one question I have. I mean, this is, lack of a better term, highly unusual, I guess, for states to get involved in tests like this, is it not? I mean, normally, what would a normal path be towards a clinical trial? I think of that more like Big Pharma is going to be doing it, or the federal government involved. Why are we even having to think about this unusual pathway with this? Why is it not going through the kind of the regular process?
That's a great question, Jeff. And as y'all know, and y'all have written about it eloquently and thoroughly, the opioid crisis in this country and in our state is devastating. And
Sure.
This is a potential very promising and solution to helping people who are at the end of their road and have no other option, to make them whole again. And so that's a reason why that we need to study this in a very thorough method. And I would love for you, MMC, to join this, or any, as Ben had said, this is done in a clinical setting in other countries, and we can do this here and study it and explore the potential of how this can really help Mississippians who are at the end of their road, who are suffering from addiction and have tried the standard methods that we have now, that at best are 30% effective.
Well, that's one thing. If I understand, Alan and Chairman Creekmore, y'all have both referenced that there hadn't been a lot of studies or adequate studies on this, but what we have seen is there are some health risks. I mean, I guess certainly we need to talk about that. Some potentially pretty severe risk with this.
So digging into why the ibogaine hasn't been studied very much in the U.S. is because it can create the risk on people who take it of cardiac arrhythmias, which can potentially lead to death. There's some preliminary evidence suggestion that magnesium could mitigate these dangers, but that is my understanding why most researchers have avoided looking at the same time, they say there's other promising drugs, including psychedelics, that, have similar pathways, but don't create that same cardiac risk. Another top psychiatrist in the US mentioned to me that GLP-1s, like the same drugs that are like Ozempic, those also have the potential to disrupt the craving pathways in substance use disorder. So I guess my question for Chairman Creekmore is, why this drug in particular? If there are other promising candidates, we should also say that most FDA trials fail. Very few actually get out of the FDA approval process, and not everyone that gets out of the FDA approval process makes it to market. And that's a very long process that would probably be at the minimum 6-7 years down the line. So why this drug in particular?
This drug in particular is because the results overseas and for people like Ben and many others have had profound success. And I know you question my numbers, but they're so strong at 80% after one treatment. We can't ignore that. And so that is why, for me, and the reason for the FDA trials, one, to make it legitimate here in the United States, but two, it is the quickest way we can start treating Mississippians. Yes, there are some that would go through with the placebo, but if we can get this approved, they can start being treated next year or whenever the program is established. So this is the quickest way, and from what I've seen, this is the most effective way to treat people with addiction and PTSD and other issues.
Mr. Bush, I'm wondering, when you tried this, Alan had mentioned there have been some severe adverse effects or whatever. Were you warned about any of that? Do you feel like you knew going in there were risks to this? Or
Oh yeah, we did the. I was hooked up to a heart monitor the entire time. The cardio discussion was covered, and I was going to kill myself anyway. So what did I have to lose?
Wow.
So
I'm
I trusted the process. We can all agree on what we're doing in the United States right now for this crisis doesn't work.
Sure. That's the thing, I guess, with particularly the opioid crisis, Chairman Creekmore. I mean, to put it bluntly and crassly, it might be time to wee on a spark plug, if that might work.
Let's limit this to the opioid crisis again. Chairman Creekmore, you said that this is the only option we have, and I don't think that's true. I think that there are other medications that have proven, they're not perfect, but they have proven over decades to be effective. You have buprenorphine and methadone, which are considered the gold standard treatments by many, many different public bodies. And I guess, like, you say that $5 million isn't that much money, but it's over 5 times more. Mississippi's been receiving opioid settlements for 3 years at this point. It's used less than $1 million actually to address the addiction crisis, which is the least of any state by percentage or by total dollars in the country. So I guess my question is, with the resources we have right now, do you think Mississippi has done enough to really address the addiction crisis?
Absolutely not. We've not done near enough. I agree with you. And I have reviewed application after application all week on the grants for the opioid settlement money. And so that needs to be put out. It was my intention from the very beginning with the opioid settlement money to get it out as quick as possible and as responsible as possible as we could. And, through the legislation process, it just dragged on, and we're just now getting the applications and reviewing them. Having said that, I do believe ibogaine has enough merit that needs to be studied, and the results, although they're from overseas, are just staggering. And when you mentioned the gold standard of methadone and 30% or 20% success rate, I mean, that's not even close to what the results are from ibogaine from what we've heard so far.
Mr. Chairman, one thing, again, I've done far less reading than any of you folks, but one thing I did run across just reading up a little before this is, as far as those results maybe you see from overseas or in the limited places where this is being done, well, perhaps that's a result of much of the people able to get this treatment now are very motivated. They have the means to do it, to travel or whatever. And that in and of itself, you're not looking at a control group or whatnot. You're looking at a very motivated group anyway that might, they're that motivated to travel to Tijuana or somewhere. They might be more successful with anything, even a placebo. I mean, again, I guess this all comes back to there just hasn't been enough study, right?
You're right. They're motivated. They're out of options, many of these people. Just like had been mentioned, the VETS organization sent him there, and that is Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions.
Yeah.
And they're sending thousands of veterans to be treated on ibogaine. And so, to me, it's not something we turn our back on. It's something we need to study. And yes, this is very important how we spend this money. And to me, this is a worthy issue and something we need to continue to explore, especially when we can parlay our money with other states and join in this effort.
Well, and maybe either or both of y'all could opine on this. Why hasn't the pharmaceutical industry, academia, whoever, why haven't the usual suspects pursued this? You would figure if it, is there something sinister? Big Pharma wants to keep...
You want my honest answer to that?
Yes, sir.
Because it works.
Okay. Meaning like you think Big Pharma wants to keep selling Suboxone and methadone and...
100%. And I'm not trying to get into that negative side of politics or anything like that, but that's 100%.
Sure.
Well, the solutions we have today, you continue to take for a lifetime. And so pharma makes a large profit off of that, and you're stuck with it. Ibogaine is a 1 or 2 time treatment, and you're done.
But we don't know that for sure. I mean, I've reviewed a lot of studies on ibogaine, and most of them end at 6 months. That's when the studies, and we have testimonies like Mr. Bush that, the drug has done profound wonders, and I'm so grateful for that. But we don't know for sure that ibogaine is a one and done.
We don't. You're correct. That's why we need to study it.
So, Chairman Creekmore, you spoke a little bit about the state maybe using some of its opioid settlement money for this, but it's not the only group that's been receiving opioid settlement money in Mississippi. A lot of cities and counties throughout the state have also been receiving this money, and that was kind of one of the parts that I looked into over this summer is how they were spending it. And that's where that less than $1 million is coming from. So I guess, I'm curious about your opinion. Do you think that the cities and counties should be spending their money on addressing this overdose crisis? And if so, what role does the state legislature have to encourage the cities and counties to do that?
No, and Alan, thank you for bringing light to that issue on the cities and counties. But absolutely, I believe that many of them just don't know what to do. with the money. And I'm planning on offering legislation to give the cities and counties guidelines. Again, we're looking at, if it was to pass, we're looking at July of 2026 for those guidelines to come out. That they need to spend that money on abatement for opioid addiction, PTSD, TBI, and they need to be spending it now.
Do you think that right now, Attorney General Lynn Fitch hasn't put any reporting requirements on how they spend it? Would you and the legislature maybe look into putting some reporting requirements on how they spend it?
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Bush, Chairman Creekmore, really appreciate y'all coming on. This is a fascinating topic.
Yes,
and something that I imagine we'll be discussing for some time in the future, and probably would like to perhaps get both of you back on for an update sometime sooner rather than later. But really do appreciate it. And Mr. Bush, you shared a very personal story, and thank you for doing that.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all very much.
Jeff,
Thank
and
you.
Alan, if I could add, Ben has been incredible on this journey, and he's offered so much to Mississippi, sharing his story, which, as you appropriately mentioned, is very personal, but it's been so powerful. He and others at this hearing to share their stories and their journey through recovery and to be made whole. Not that there was, Ben is a product of our military and has served the country in Mississippi bravely and courageously. And then when he came home, the solutions there to make him whole were not there that our country provided. And I'm just thankful that he's a Mississippian, he's here, and he's been able to help in this journey through trying to help others.
Yeah, if I actually might piggyback off that, Mr. Bush, first, I don't know if I fully expressed this throughout but from everything I have, just thank you so much for the profound sacrifice you and your family have made for this country and trying to keep us all safer. My dad worked at a homeless veteran shelter. He was the fundraiser there for 30 years, and he saw a lot of the consequences of this country not really prioritizing veterans once they come back from their service. Mr. Bush, what do you think the country could do, and Mississippi specifically, could do better to support people in your position when they come home beyond, investing in ibogaine?
Well, first and foremost, I love Mississippi. Mississippi people are the greatest people in the country. I don't want to live anywhere else. We don't have a huge veteran community in Mississippi. It's a ton of West Coast, East Coast, people, a lot of Texas people. So just to kind of see people coming out of the woodwork after this came up, reaching out to me about it, asking questions. But Mississippi's very unhealthy, physically and mentally. There's a way to get it back healthy. But I would like to see this trial get done and the data show that we need to have clinics here and get people in. I don't understand. Obviously, that's Sam's role to kind of figure out how to get people there and the funding, get them into these clinics and get them out. And that's just kind of what I want to see in the future. To answer your question, Mississippi's very supportive of veterans being in the Southeast, and I'm doing my part. I am connecting people with vets down in Mexico. I have a ranger buddy that got back Monday from Mexico. He actually had to leave Israel early because he was dealing with some issues over there. And we were on the phone yesterday for an hour and 15 minutes, him sharing. And all our stories are very similar. I've never told him my story, but they're all these stories. When three other people shared their testimony at the hearing, they all lined up. They're very similar to what they felt afterwards. And I'm helping younger guys get ranger contracts that want to get in the military. We need more Mississippi people in especially the ranger community. They would thrive there. they would do well. When I got there, there were not many people like me. Nobody hunted and fished. Nobody had a dad that farmed. One of my best friends was stealing cars in California and taking them down to Mexico and selling them. Like it's just, that kind of stuff. Skateboarding. We don't do that here. We hunt and fish and we're outside. We play sports. That's just our culture.
Well, again, thank you both for coming on. And like I said, I would like to, if I could, secure a promise that we will revisit this, as I'm sure this issue will be discussed early and often.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Alan.
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.